Hello, everyone, and welcome into Wednesday's edition of To The Point podcast. Everybody's doing well out there. Fun couple shows begin the week. Really enjoying the new format. Hopefully, many of you can join me again today. Leave your comments, leave your say, have your say in the comment section, and I'll get to that throughout the show. Today, we're going to talk lockouts. We're going to talk about some players resurging in the National Hockey League. Wild game in Winnipeg last night. I'm gonna even bring up some golf news that I heard Steve Sands talk about. Works for NBC in the Golf Channel, which was really interesting. So we'll touch on that. And my good buddy Craig Eagles will join us in about 45 to 50 minutes. We'll get into the QMJHL. It's not something I cover every day, but you have St. John hosting the Memorial Cup this year. You have some good Maritime teams. We're going to talk about some Maritime players and the Q as a whole with Craig. So that's coming up in the not too distant future. But let's start with the poll question, as we normally do. And today's poll was pretty simple. It was, do you care about baseball? And the reason I ask is baseball is not a sport where you normally pick it up at a later age, where you say, no, this really wasn't as boring as I thought it was. Or, you don't just say, okay, I'm going to watch a full game of baseball. It's 4.5 hours. You need to be really invested in this sport. And I think it's a sport you need to watch from a young age. And normally it's a grandparent or somebody that you really value in your life that loves the sport. You watch it with them, and you guys kind of have that as the centerpiece of your relationship, or at least the time that you're spending together. Now, oddly enough for me, that wasn't me per se. My parents were big baseball fans when the Blue Jays were good in the early 90s. I wasn't born yet. My grandfather, who I love watching sports with, it's maybe what I miss most about being around him. He wasn't a big baseball guy. He said it was boring. He didn't like how long the pitchers took on the mound. Amen. That was the poll question today because obviously the MLB is on a pause. It's not a full-blown lockout yet, like in 1994, where they had a work stoppage for the entire season. But with games postponed the first two series of the season, and it doesn't sound like a deal is going to get rectified anytime soon, you have to start to wonder, where does this go for baseball? And without going into the CBA, the jargon, and getting in too much into the weeds on what's happening there, to me, baseball is losing fans day after day after day. Because hardcore fans of any sport will come back. They will say, you know what? Okay, I'm so angry about this, or I'm so upset. Like, for instance, we got into the discussion yesterday about, the Russians are poor sports. I got one of those in the comments, and I said, well, you get over it because you want to see them play Canada at the World Juniors. You're not pushing them out of a tournament because of this. But if you're a fringe baseball fan, if you're somebody that just will watch a game every now and then, or it's the summer, there's not much on, you say, okay, I'll throw on a game tonight just to keep it interesting. I'm not so sure that that's going to continue to happen moving forward. And the reason I say that is because there's no games. Baseball's monopoly is right now into early April, and it is in July and August, when there's 2 months of no hockey, no basketball, and limited football when it comes to preseason, and only crazy people, me, watch those games. But you look at it, baseball is one of the most popular months is April because it's the start of the season. There's hope. You could be a Baltimore Orioles fan, but you'll still watch early in the season because your team is not 30 games below 500 yet. If you're in a small market club, you'll watch early on to say, you know what, maybe we can go on a run. Maybe we can catch a heater Maybe we can be the San Francisco Giants of last season and do something that nobody expected. And that's fun in April. It's early baseball. There's errors, there's mistakes. A lot of guys get injured. You see prospects play. It's fun. But we don't get any of that right now. And baseball, delaying the start. Let's say they start May 1st. Let's just say that's opening day. That's a terrible time for opening day. Because NHL playoffs, full bloom. NBA playoffs, full bloom. The French Open tennis is on in May. The PGA Championship in golf is on in May. You might say, well, golf and tennis are minor sports. People watch majors. Again, you might not be a golf fan. You might be a huge tennis fan. You might not watch the Madrid Open, but you say, hey, it's the French Open. Rafa's going for a major, his 14th French Open title. We'll throw that on Sunday morning, Paris, France. And you're not watching baseball at the same time. And, getting an audience, keeping an audience is problematic for the sport. But it also hurts that you say, okay, baseball's coming back, we're excited. But when you get the product back, it's still the same boring product that we remembered. Baseball is a swing and miss sport. We're going to swing for the home run every time. There's very few ground balls anymore. There's very few balls in play. And it's boring. It's not that fun to watch. So if you have greedy owners that are delaying the start of the season that you're not happy with, you can't watch the games. You see some players that you probably like, but you're like, why are they holding this up? They make tons of money. Max Scherzer being, the poster boy of this. So why would I watch something that I don't particularly love to begin with? They're delaying my start. And I have to, in order to watch this game, in order to watch Jays Yankees, I have to miss watching a hockey, basketball, or you name it, Sport X playoff game. That's a tough sell. It's a really tough sell. Another tough break for baseball. This is not fact yet, but I think this is going to happen. In the next 2 to 3 seasons, the NBA is going to push back their start time. And I mean the start of the season. I believe the NBA will be starting on Christmas Day, maybe December 1st, and then at least the next 3 to 5 years. That hurts baseball. You know why? Because basketball, the NBA Finals, will be played in mid-July. That is right in the middle of the baseball season. That is when the MLB All-Star Game is, which All-Star Games are important to every sport. Again, I don't watch it, but apparently people do because they're still in the air. So they're running out of runway where they have just something to themselves, where people are excited to watch baseball. And, what was really interesting today is Mike Trout came out and spoke. Mike Trout is about as bland, is about as moon mist, as you all know, if you're just new to the podcast. I like to call people that are, normally referred to as vanilla, boring people, moon mist, because vanilla is the most popular ice cream flavor in the world. People crave vanilla. Moon mist sucks. Terrible taste. Nobody likes it. Mike Trout's personality is moon mist. It's very generic. It's say the right thing, get through the interview, yada, yada, yada. Today, he came out and he said, Rob canceled the games. Meaning that Rob Manfred, the commissioner, is the reason why there are no games right now. That is a direct attack on the commissioner of baseball. If you haven't seen this either, there's a picture that was circulated yesterday. During a break, maybe just Manfred stepped out. He is outside of the meeting room practicing his golf swing as they're meeting in Florida. Now, I get it. You want to, take a couple strokes off your handicap. How about be smart enough not to do it in front of the cameras? Go back to your hotel room, do your little golf swing, get your putter, do what you got to do. But pretend to care. Pretend to your fan base that you want games to be on. Pretend. Could you at least do that? Casey Ward, do you watch MLB All-Star Game? Game seems like the only league where you can't fake it with 100-mile-an-hour zipping past you. Good point. No, I don't. I view, again, All-Star Game. Maybe I should try to watch it because the All-Star Game stigma for me, I can't get past it. I view the home run derby a lot like the dunk contest. I think it's very overdone. It's overblown. It's oversaturated. And I'm not big on it. You see a guy win the home run derby every year that isn't the greatest home run hitter. Pete Alonso has won it twice. He's never had the most home runs in a season. I don't think he ever will. So again, it is what it is. I think the All-Star Game does have the most validity, Casey. It's true. You have Aroldis Chapman come out of the bullpen. And something baseball did that was smart is they had it for NL versus AL. The winner of the game got to have home field in the World Series. I love that idea. That should be a part of every sport. Kudos to baseball, because normally you do nothing right. I think that's smart because you need your athletes to care. That's the biggest problem with the All-Star Game, because athletes don't care, and I can't blame them, especially baseball. Why the hell would you want to go to an All-Star Game where you already play 162 games? 162? And they say, yeah, we need you to come do the home run derby, do the All-Star Game, and you get 2 days off. Where are you going on a trip in 2 days? You live in Chicago, you play for the White Sox, okay, go to the north side and visit the Cubs, go see Wrigley. That's your trip. Great. So it's difficult to wrap your head around. Casey, home run derby is trash, but the game itself would rank higher than NHL, NBA, Pro Bowl. Agreed. No disagreement. Walker Campbell, the Pro Bowl is an absolute. Agreed. It's two-hand touch. Again, I don't know what, but the thing is, and I agree with your point, Walker, but this is crazy, and I remember reading this a few weeks ago. At one point, the Pro Bowl had 12 million viewers. 12 million people were watching that game. That tells you what the NFL can do. The NFL is king. A terrible product. A joke of a game. I'm assuming some of this is gambling, but that's still 12 million people watching a flag football game. That's absurd. Baseball would kill for 6. Kill. Last year in the World Series, 6 games between the Atlanta Braves. Who did they play now? I even forget. Oh, the Astros, right? They had 11 million total viewers in the 6 games combined. The Pro Bowl had 12 million in one day on a shitty field in Vegas. It's crazy. It's crazy. This is a terrible look for baseball. They need to figure this out. They need to play games soon because you can't sit on this. People are angry. People are vengeful. Now, more often than not, people will return to the sport that they love. But in my mind, there are more people that would have baseball in their favorite sport category ranked 3rd to 4th than they would 1st or 2nd. And there's some of you out there that would have baseball 1 or baseball 2 right after hockey. I get that. I'm saying as a worldwide radius, worldwide, if we polled people, excluding soccer, if we're just talking about North America, hockey, football, basketball, I think would rank higher than baseball, even in the States. in certain areas. You're telling me they really give a shit about baseball in Vegas? No. They love the Golden Knights. That region, you never think that's a hockey market. It is now. It would rank potentially ahead of football. Who knows? But they need to get product on the field. And this whole collective bargaining agreement is masking the bigger problem. Your product is boring. Your product is old-fashioned. Your product is not set up for people to enjoy it. People don't have 4.5 hours to watch a baseball game. People don't want to see 95 pitching changes. People don't want to see 13 or 14 strikeouts on each side. They just don't. Keep them entertained. Well, what's going to happen is there's this thing called a clicker. Even if you're in mid-July, you have no other sport on. Well, there's this thing called Netflix, Apple TV, Amazon Prime, Crave. Let me tell you, I started watching Ted Lasso. Damn good show. I'm hooked. Did the podcast last night, went home, watched 3 or 4 of them. Might do the same thing tonight. It's a good show. Diamondbacks versus this team, Ted Lasso. I might want to watch Ted Lasso. Who knows? And I'm a sports guy. It's a sports show, but just there's a lot of options for people out there, and baseball is not always top priority. Speaking of football, of course, it's mid-March, so why not talk some football for a minute? Free agency starts in a couple weeks. That'll be an interesting time period. We're already hearing some rumblings. Potentially Kevin O'Connell, the new head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, potentially wanting to move on from Kirk D. Cousins. Who wouldn't? Kirk D. Cousins is scheduled to have the largest cap hit in the NFL next season at over $43 million. $43 million for Kirk D. Cousins. Yeah. There's always the Aaron Rodgers rumors, which not going to get into today. The guy pisses me off more than maybe anybody in sports right now. But, he's smarter than all of us, so we'll let Aaron Rodgers fix his new contract. He'll likely get $50 million from the Green Bay Packers. I don't think he's going anywhere. There's the Tom Brady rumor, where he can come back and play for the San Francisco 49ers after they trade podcast favorite porn star Jimmy, a.k.a. Jimmy Garoppolo. I think there's legs to this rumor. But, again, I don't root for teams. I root for content. I love Deebo Samuel. I like Kyle Shanahan. I like the meat of the San Francisco 49ers. They got to an NFC championship game. Probably should have won that game with, one of my favorites. I won't lie. I love porn star Jimmy, Jimmy G, but he's not an elite quarterback. Tom Brady would push that team over the top. Will he come back? We'll wait and see. But I root for content. And what makes this rumor way more interesting to me right now is the fact that Bruce Arians came out a few days ago talking to the Tampa Bay media. I think he talked to Rich Stroud of the Tampa Bay Times. And he said that if Tom Brady comes back, if he comes out of retirement, he would not trade him to another organization. That's bad business. He would not let him go play in San Francisco. Now, this is an interesting development because maybe Brady doesn't come back and this is a non-starter. But Bruce Arians is saying this now. And I respect his stance. I actually happen to agree with it. But when push comes to shove, I believe that he will give Tom Brady what he wants. And here's why. Tom Brady went to Tampa when Tampa was an absolute joke. He got people to buy in. He got people to want to play there. He ultimately won a Super Bowl. They only had one prior. They hadn't made the playoffs since winning their past Super Bowl in 2004. But beyond all that, if Tampa Bay has Tom Brady sitting there. They're not letting him leave. He's stuck. They say, you can play for us, but he sees a better opportunity to win a Super Bowl elsewhere. He's going to be 45 on August 4th. And they say, Tom, you can play here. He says, no, I want to go to San Francisco. I grew up being a Joe Montana super fan. I'm from the Bay Area. Let me finish it off there. And he's not cool with that. They're not cool with that. And he causes a fuss. Well, what's the public perception going to be if Tampa Bay does not let Tom Brady walk away? They don't let him explore his options. Don't let him go to San Francisco to finish his career. They're going to be labeled an organization that is not player friendly. They're going to be labeled an organization that are power hungry, that don't give player empowerment, that are free agents I don't think are going to want to play in Tampa Bay. And as much as it would hurt to let Tom Brady walk to a team in the NFC, a team that, although not in your division, would have a very good chance of winning a Super Bowl this coming season, I believe they would have to do it, because eventually you need players to come to your organization. And holding Tom Brady in hostage in prison, keeping his rights so another team can't capitalize on him, is not a good look. And it might be a good stance, but I don't think it'd be one that they'd stick to, because I know if I'm Tom Brady and I'm coming back, it's not going to be playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Chris Godwin is going to be gone. Gronk is not what he used to be. Ali Marpet just retired at 28 years old, a great guard. Does Ndamukong Suh come back? He might retire. Shaq Barrett doesn't look like the same player. Jason Pierre-Paul may retire after a great career. This team is not going to be what they once were. San Francisco has players. Fred Warner's in his prime at linebacker. You got Deebo Samuel, who might be the most versatile receiver / running back threat in the NFL. You got Kyle Shanahan, who's a great play caller. You got George Kittle, who, if you look at pass blocking and receiving, he just might be the best tight end in all of football. It's a better situation. San Francisco is a team that's on the rise. And Brady would have to play the Rams twice, potentially a third time in the playoffs. But I think he would take on that challenge because he looks around and says, I got some great players with me. Juwan Jennings is no slouch. Deebo Samuel's a stud. Again, Fred Warner. I get Trent Williams at left tackle. One of the best in the game. He can run people over. What's not to like about San Francisco? But again, I don't want Tom Brady to come back because he retired. I don't like people that retire and then come back 5 minutes later. Just don't retire. Just say you're still not making up your mind, and maybe he won't return. We'll see. But if Brady wants to go to San Francisco, I think he'll get there. And, pivoting into that, I see Walker in the chat. I think the 49ers should use Trey Lance as a bargaining chip to possibly trade for Deshaun Watson. Would make them an instant contender in my mind. Deshaun Watson is so intriguing because right now he's going through the legal process. He's going through lawyers, he's getting deposed, I believe, as we speak. So we're waiting to hear a resolution on his class action lawsuits. I think it's going to be interesting to see if he gets suspended, what happens if he settles, things of that nature. I remember when Big Ben was accused of sexual assault, he initially had a 6-game suspension. It was reduced to 4. He's been accused of sexual assault, and we're going to wait to see the court of law. And technically, he missed all of last season, but he wasn't suspended. He just agreed with Houston that he was not going to play. He would get paid. So it's an interesting balancing act to see what they're going to do. But to your point, Walker, I love Deshaun Watson. As a player, the guy is phenomenal. I think he is, you look at Mahomes, Josh Allen, there's not many quarterbacks that are better. Joe Burrow, Deshaun, like he's in the top 5 for me. He's ahead of Lamar Jackson, an MVP. He's ahead of a lot of guys when it comes to, obviously he's ahead of Baker Mayfield. I could go through he's ahead of Kyler Murray, who I'll touch on in a minute. But a team is going to want him. It's just where he's going to go. Do I think the 49ers would be better suited with Deshaun Watson or Tom Brady at quarterback than Trey Lance next year? No doubt. I think they'd have the capital to do it, to make a move. And what I like about the 49ers, John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have plunged. They traded for Garoppolo. They gave up a ton. They give out big contracts. And you got to look, they were a game away from the Super Bowl. They've been in 2 of the last 3 NFC Championship games. They know Jimmy Garoppolo is not the answer. We know he's going to get traded this offseason. Maybe it's the Pittsburgh, maybe it's the Carolina, Washington football team. We'll wait and see. But if you're not going to keep Jimmy G, why did he play? And Trey Lance is your next option. Why didn't he play in the playoffs? So he's going to get a few full, walkthroughs in training camp with him as the starter, getting all the reps. He's a second-year quarterback that is as raw as it gets. There are going to be quarterbacks in this draft class that is not that highly touted right now that would be more ready to play than Trey Lance, in my opinion, because they just went through a whole college season. At least they got reps. He held a clip. Yes, but he didn't even practice 6 of the last 8 weeks because he had a finger injury. So how prepared is he to play an NFL game? Now, Walker, to your point, Trey Lance would be interesting for me if I'm Houston, because you get a guy on his second year. He's on a entry-level contract. He's making the rookie quarterback contract. So you don't have to pay your quarterback a lot. You bring him in there. Davis Mills is there. So if he's not ready to play, Davis Mills, who's also a second-year quarterback, they went in the same draft class, could play. I don't think it's a bad situation. If I'm Houston, that's one of the best scenarios you can get, because in all likelihood, when they trade Deshaun, if they traded him to, he has a full no moves, he'd get to decide this. I don't see why he wouldn't go to San Francisco. But say he accepts Carolina. Do you want Sam Darnold in the package? I wouldn't. Would you want PJ Walker in the package? No. So basically, you're trading Deshaun Watson. You have Davis Mills, and you're hoping the next season that there's a quarterback that you're high on that you believe can be the quarterback of your future. If you're trading, you're trading Deshaun anyway. He's not playing there. We've known this for a year and change. Why not get a quarterback that you can at least develop, and potentially you could get a quarterback of the future and in a trade that was going to happen regardless? And for the 49ers, it's appealing because, yeah, you took Trey Lance third and you moved up to take him, and that hurts. But maybe they'll take the approach of their division rival, the Los Angeles Rams. The Rams went all in to get Matthew Stafford. They have made 1 first-round pick since 2016. That was Jared Goff. He's not on the roster. So picks don't matter if you win it all. All we hear, we hear all the time about the Toronto Maple Leafs trading away their draft picks. That's because they lose in the first round. If they won rounds, if they won a Stanley Cup, it wouldn't be such a big deal. If the 49ers got to a Super Bowl next year with Deshaun Watson, people wouldn't even remember Trey Lance's name. Because Deshaun Watson would be the guy that was in court that looked like a scumbag that is now a Super Bowl champion and the king of San Francisco. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan drafted Trey Lance. They clearly believe this guy can win a Super Bowl with the team because they took him 3rd overall. They passed on Mac Jones. They passed on different quarterbacks, on Justin Fields, to take Trey Lance. But, and there's always a but, when there's a better quarterback sitting in front of you, when you look in that locker room, Trent Williams is 34. He's not getting any younger. Deebo Samuel can only play at this level for so long. George Kittle can only take so many hits. We could go down the line. Guys get old, and eventually you might not get a Super Bowl in that window, because maybe Trey Lance is going to take longer than we think. I'm sure Buffalo feels they took their time with Josh Allen. He's turned out to be a star. And maybe Trey Lance will be too. But we don't know that yet. And you have a guy that you know, if he's available to play, that's a big if he's not suspended, Deshaun Watson is a better quarterback than 90% of the NFL. He's a better quarterback than Trey Lance. And you have a team that is built to win now. They were a game away from the Super Bowl. So Walker, to answer your question, I don't think it's crazy. I mentioned Patrick Kane from the Blackhawks yesterday getting traded. I go on TSN this morning. They write about it. Are they listening to the point? I don't blame them. They say, could the Blackhawks trade Taves and Kane? Yeah, I think they could. New York. Do I think Trey Lance could be moved? Of course. Wayne Gretzky got traded. That's, if the great one can get traded, anybody can. The New England Patriots said, we're sick of Tom Brady. Bill Belichick was tired of coaching Tom Brady. He showed him the door. If a coach can do that, Kyle Shanahan, despite him loving himself some Trey Lance, can say, you know what? I like Deshaun Watson better. I'd rather have Deshaun. I'd rather win a Super Bowl than be in a position to win a Super Bowl 2 to 3 years down the line. It's an attractive trade for both sides because both sides get something that could potentially be franchise changing. Trey Lance could be a franchise quarterback in San Francisco. Could is the operative word. Houston knows they're losing a franchise quarterback in Deshaun Watson. Davis Mills played okay last year. I don't think he's going to be a franchise quarterback. You could trade a guy that you know you're losing anyway, and in return, get a guy that you could build into a franchise quarterback. So you'd lose a franchise quarterback, but in the same trade, get one back. That's good business. Would Trey Lance be thrilled? Probably not, because I think he looks around and says, this is my team now. Look at Deebo. Look at Kittle. Look at Juwan Jennings. Look at Brandon Ayuk. God, that kid's athletic. And he's like, this is going to be fun next season. To me, Deshaun Watson holds all the cards. He has a full no move. He's not going to Washington. I don't think he'd accept the trade to Pittsburgh. I don't think he's going to Miami now after all the craziness that's happened there. I think he wanted to play under Brian Flores. They fired him. I think that's kiboshed. Where would he go? We'll have to wait and see. But Walker, I think your 49ers make sense. Obviously, you're a Bills fan, but I think that would make sense. So good thought and good proposition here. But I looked around at the free agent quarterbacks. This season is not exactly a impressive list. I'm going to list off a number of them for you. Mitch Trubisky, backup quarterback in Buffalo last season. You have potentially Carson Wentz, who I expect to be released by the Indianapolis Colts in a few weeks. Cam Newton, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota after a few years backing up in Vegas, Teddy Bridgewater. Those are the main guys that are going to be free. So, of course, we gets to talk about, well, what happens with Aaron Rodgers? What happens with Russell Wilson? What happens with Deshaun Watson? But I'm looking at these names, and feel free to drop in the comments out of Mitch Trubisky, Carson Wentz, Cam Newton, Jameis Winston, Marcus Mariota, who you would prefer as your starting quarterback. If you had to pick one of those guys, again, you don't get to pick. You don't have your realistic world. You don't get Rodgers. You don't get Josh Allen, Mahomes. If you had to pick one of those four, who would you pick? Leave it in the comments if you want to have your voice heard. I'm looking at this. The obvious answer on the surface is Carson Wentz. Because Carson Wentz is, he's played well. He was likely going to win an MVP in Philly before he completely blew up his knee. Nick Foles came in, that story, they're going to win the Super Bowl. But I watched him in Indy last year. He had good moments, but I don't trust Carson Wentz in the big games. And what's shocking, you wouldn't expect this, but of the quarterbacks drafted in the last 4 years, Mitch Trubisky is the fourth best winning percentage. Mitch Trubisky taken second overall in Chicago. And Chicago will never live that down because he's gone now. Trubisky, I think, unfairly labeled as a bust. I think he was a decent quarterback, not a great one. But Chicago took Trubisky. That's not his fault that he went second overall, instead of taking Deshaun Watson or Patrick Mahomes. That will sting forever. That'll sting long after those guys are out of the league, because you could have had one of these two elite quarterbacks at your disposal. But I look at Trubisky, and I thought, well, maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers will want point star Jimmy Garoppolo, because he's a veteran, he's got experience, he could be a guy that they really look at. I could see Mitch Trubisky going to the Steelers because they want an athletic quarterback. I've heard them talk about this. He's not a guy that's franchise changing, but I do think he can keep your team competitive. I see we got my friend Craig Eagles on the line, so I'm going to bring him in here. I'm going to bring Craig in here. Craig, good to see you. I hope all things are well, and how have you been, my friend?
Well, thanks so much, Noah, for this. It's been a bit of a whirlwind the last half hour or so. So it's great to be on board, and congratulations on the new look to the Point podcast. You've done tremendous work throughout, and like you said, it's all about the content, and you continue to deliver. So congratulations, Noah.
Oh, I appreciate that, Craig. Just for people you haven't been on in a minute, how are things? What are you doing work-wise with hockey? And just kind of give an update on that front.
Well, the work continues with the Fredericton Red Wings. I'm honored, and it's been a privilege to be their head scout. So it's been great. Also had the honor to jump on Eastlink with the Halifax Mooseheads coming to Moncton, and their broadcast a week ago. So it's been to be honest with you, Noah, I thought the whole broadcast and color analyst might have been a thing of the past. So it's been great to have that opportunity to tell some stories on the QMJHL front. So it was awesome to be kind of back in the saddle. And funny story, game goes into overtime. And so it was a broken play. Moncton, they had too many men on the ice. And sure enough, it's a breakaway. I thought he either hit the crossbar or missed the net. Guy buried it on his backhand. Phenomenal goal. And we're showing, usually with Rogers, we cut to break and come back.
Right.
So they're showing the ice, and the last Halifax Moosehead player skates off the ice, and then I look over at Mavs, and Mavs looks at me just much to say, "Listen, bud, like what are you doing?" So I'm still masked. I wore my mask throughout the broadcast, except for live hits in the press box. And sure enough, there I am. I have my back turned to the camera, trying to take my mask off, and we come back up to us after the game. So maybe some would say my best side, my bald head. So anyway, no, it was great to be back, and again, some phenomenal stories coming out of the QMJHL, Noah, this season, especially Evan Boucher, sorry. Evan's story, 11 goals in 10 games for the Halifax Mooseheads as a 19-year-old free agent. So just some phenomenal stories. And the league, as you know, Noah, is never short of storylines.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been following him lately. Just seeing him. I see his name every time they play a game. That he's on the scoreboard, along with the likes of Denoyer and Lurer and Dumais down there in Halifax. But what would you say? Grand scheme is the. How would you define this QMJHL season, Craig? If you had to kind of break it down, how would you define this season so far?
Well, as you know, I'm a big Clint Eastwood fan.
Who isn't?
Well, some people, politically speaking, might be opposed to. And anyway, politics aside, yeah. I'm a big Clint Eastwood fan from way back. So right. It's all about Heartbreak Ridge. It's about improvise, adapt, and overcome. And that's what the QMJHL have done and continue to do. With COVID, with the restrictions, there's going to be a lot of hockey right now, and they're trying to get all 68 games in. They've done a fantastic job, in my opinion. However, teams around the Maritimes are going to be tough playing a lot of games in a short period of time. So you're already seeing it, Noah, where a lot of APs are being called up there, and with every AP that's called up, there's a story, right? And it's great to see, especially here locally in the Maritimes. Noah Matulu, fantastic story, right? Here's a kid, 2.5 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, he can't crack a U18 roster, goes and plays high school, and then all of a sudden, 2 short years later, he's in the queue playing for Rimouski, signs as a free agent. I've written about his path. I think he has pro potential. So, from I guess it's a long answer to your question. It's all been about adapting, and they've done a good job. It's going to be very, very difficult for teams, especially around the Maritimes, to stay healthy, just because of the games and the condensed schedule.
To keep it close with Moncton, do you expect to see a guy like Preston Lonsberry? Well, I know you've written about. We interviewed last June, July. Now it's been a minute, but I remember how young I thought that kid was, and I watched him at the Monctonian. But do you expect to see him get some runway with the Wildcats down the stretch here?
Definitely, and obviously we drafted him in Fredericton, and right. We've since traded his rights. It's the business side of things, and we wish Preston very well. And he's already seen lots of games. I think it's 4 or 5 games so far for the Wildcats, and I see that trend continuing with a lot of APs here locally. And they're even, let's say Moncton travels to Quebec, if they're short numbers and that type of thing, you're going to see 2021 draft picks or 2020 draft picks suiting up in their lineup. So it's great to see Preston and everyone here locally get an opportunity to play games. And with every debut, family and friends are able to see those debuts, which last year, Noah, they couldn't. Right. And which is very, very impactful for their friends and family.
Where's Moncton right now, Craig? Because I went to a game a few weeks ago. They had an incredible comeback against Drummondville. That game was wild, but they're kind of in this weird position. All the Maritime teams are really kind of clogged together, other than Charlottetown, who are really up in front there. But where's Moncton? Are they in a rebuild? Are they competing? Where do you see them as a franchise right now?
Well, that's a great question, Noah. Like, what are the Moncton Wildcats? Really? I wrote something about that about a week and a half ago. Really, do they have an identity? And their identity is a blue-collar mentality. They don't have a lot of skill, offensive skill up front. So it's scoring by committee. And they continue to do that. And they're relentless. They don't go away, right? And they've had a lot of man games missed. They've had people in and out of the lineup. So just the other day, I know they lose 8-1 or whatever it was. There's a team that were decimated with COVID. It was, it's public domain. It was out there that, the league brought it to the forefront with regards to canceling a game. And then, they throw together a roster and try their best on Sunday of last week. So, what are the Moncton Wildcats? Definitely they're in a rebuild, but Richie Thibault and Rick Melanson have done a tremendous job, and their entire scouting staff have done a great job drafting and developing. And with Dan Lacroix and everyone behind the bench and behind the scenes, they're a team to be reckoned with in the future.
Right.
But they have to bring in high-powered offensive players. Their back end is solid. Obviously with Filion between the pipes moving forward, a lot of people were surprised to see Lemieux brought in and a player, a high character player and energy player like Jake Stewart. That obviously, Noah, that was a very difficult decision. Probably one of Richie Thibault's toughest as the hockey operations guru with the Moncton Wildcats. So, why bring in a 20-year-old goaltender when you have the goaltender of the future? Well, they want to win a round in the playoffs, right? And give this young, very, very solid lineup a chance to experience what the playoffs are all about. They overachieved last year, and some would say they're overachieving this year as well, just based on effort. And they continue to do a great job. I'm really worried about, and it's not really worried, but concerned about their offensive output in the years to come. And I think they're going to address that. You can address that, as you know, Noah, through the free agent market, the Evan Bouchers of the world, or you can draft and develop. And I think they're right in between right now, or you can kind of acquire through trades. And I think, do they have assets to move? Yes. Will they move assets in the draft at the draft? Potentially, but I see them, trying to acquire as many assets as they can and signing key free agents.
What Maritime team other than Charlottetown are you the highest on?
Well, that's another solid question. What are the St. John Sea Dogs? On paper, they look great. Mm-hmm. They look like a Memorial Cup host.
Right.
What are they? Gordy Dwyer, if there's anyone that can, Gordy Dwyer is going to get them playing their best hockey at the right time. They've been up and down all season. They haven't been consistent. Oh, well, Craig, they've strung together some great victories. I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at their character. And I think a trade that kind of, they give up a lot to acquire a player like Connor Trenholm, but Connor Trenholm is going to be a great addition to their bottom six, and he can play up and down the lineup. So if they run into injuries, Connor can play top 6 minutes. He can play bottom 6 minutes. He can kill penalties. He can be on the power play. A trade like that, even Lazar coming in from Val-d'Or, is a trade, might not be high profile, but the kid can play. Those deals at the trade deadline are going to pay dividends in the long run. But it's all about character in St. John. In Acadie Bathurst right now, they're coming together as a unit. They've got some solid goaltending in Bendar and Arsenault. Huckinson's been out of the lineup. If they get Huckins back, I think they're going to be solid as well. Obviously, Hinckley going to Drummondville was a bit of a surprise. They acquired a couple second-round draft picks and moved those around a little bit. So I think with the change of scenery, with head coach Clark coming in, I think the Titan are going to be, once they get rolling, which they are, they're going to be a force to be reckoned with as well. So some great hockey here in the Maritimes division.
How is Hendrix Lapierre, improved from coming back from the NHL, which can be difficult for prospects when they initially get back? How has his game gotten better from November until present day?
Well, I could give you the BS answer on that, or I can give you the straight answer. I haven't seen them live, so I'm not going to, I'm not going to give you the BS answer on that. What I will tell you, and Noah, hopefully you can appreciate that, because I know you do appreciate the non-BS and bullshit take.
Yes.
And you always have and always will. And that's what I appreciate about you. Hendrix Lapierre, I will tell you this. Okay, here's a kid that there's always going to be a letdown. There's always going to be a hangover, so to speak, with kids coming back from the NHL. And here's a kid that had quality success with regards to playing NHL games and being an impact player at the NHL level. He went weeks without between games, though, which is unfair for the kid.
Totally agree.
In my opinion. So if you're there and you're playing games, and Backstrom's out of the lineup, Washington, they up and down. But here's a kid, play him as 9 games and send him back. Don't leave him hanging there, going weeks on end without playing. And then you get your 8 games, and then he's banged up a little bit. He comes back. It's just.
And as a GM everyone, NHL, Craig, I don't see why they would think that's a smart decision. It's their prospect. He's just sitting there doing nothing.
Well, doing nothing, but is it the atmosphere? Is it the experience?
Practice.
Is he
but
practice?
AI thought about that.
Well, when you have a player like Hendrix Lapierre, Noah, he needs to play. And he's a bit of a stallion, right? You don't box him in. I love Marty St. Louis' take. You don't box players in like that with systems. You let them go. You let them play. And that's what Hendrix Lapierre is. He's a stallion. He's a stud. You go let him play. You hold him accountable, but you let him play. And I think he's going to be just fine. And he's producing. So the Titan are going to be just fine come playoff time, and they're gonna surprise a lot of people. But what can you say about Jimmy Halton and Guy Chouinard and the work that they've done to build a contender, a championship contender this year and even last year? Noah, the Charlottetown Islanders are a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they had a tough go against Halifax last weekend, but they have very few games where they're not winning recently. Close to home again. Luca Cormier obviously was at the World Juniors. Terrible. It had to get shut down. I was actually out there and I had to come home early, so that was a tough blow. But he's setting franchise records. He's got 20 goals on the season. Has his overall game gotten better this season, Craig? I mean, we've always heard about offensive numbers from him, but have you seen his game kind of tighten together and maybe what Vegas wants to see him improve on?
I think so. I think so. With Luka, it's not all offense, right? It's not the offense that people are worried about. Can he play a strong defensive game at the next level? And I think he can, right? Just based on his skating, based on the character that the kid has displayed throughout his career and throughout his path to this point. He's going to be a solid pro. There's no question about that. Will he need some time in the American Hockey League? Well, look at Jordan Spence. Jordan Spence has been called up to the Kings twice, doesn't suit up. They sent him back down. He's dominating the American Hockey League right now, in my opinion. And it's just a matter of time before he gets the call and where he plays games. So is are Vegas going to do that to Luka? Probably. They're going to give him some time to acclimatize and feel out the pro game. It's always been about, the defensive zone. And whenever you're an offensive player, and Noah, you know this as well as anyone, you always want to get out on the offense. You always want to contribute offensively. But really, it all starts in your own zone. And it all starts with players not cheating. And if they do cheat, how do they recover? And I think you look at a player like Torrey Krug or any offensive-minded defenseman, they're not one-dimensional anymore, right? They're not your power play specialist. They can do it all. And I think Luca Cormier can do it all. And I think he's going to need a little bit of time in the American Hockey League to figure things out a little bit more defensively. He was missing a little bit, and this is not a criticism or anything. There were times a year ago where you get even the year before where he get caught on the top side in his own zone, right? And that's a young mistake, right? But he skates so well and he has such a great stick that he would recover from those slight mistakes. You cannot make those mistakes at the next level. And if you do, you're pulling pucks out of your net. So I think Luka's grown as a player. Has he grown as a person? He hasn't had to, because he's been that way since he was 14 years old, Noah. Yeah. Right? Like, he comes from a hockey family, and his sister is having great success as well south of the border. It's great to see. But when you have a mind for the game like that family does, it's just tremendous. And it's tremendous that he's had so much success. But let's talk about, all right, it took almost 20 years, or actually 2 decades, for a New Brunswicker, all right, to break James Sanford's goal scoring record here in the QMJHL, which is a great feat. Congratulations, Luka, 20 goals. But that just goes to show how far advanced James Sanford was as a player back in the day. He was well before his time.
Yeah, just to add on to that, Craig, I look at him at the World Juniors, how brief it was. He played with Caden Gooley throughout the tournament. I think that can only help him, because Gooley might take some things from Luka when it comes to taking more offensive chances, working on that part of his game. Gooley is defensively sound. He's your Charlie McAvoy, if you will. He's already got that piss and vinegar. I think he's going to be a great pick for the Montreal Canadiens. But just getting those experience to be around Owen Power, be near Caden Gooley, other elite guys, can only help him. And, that experience was short, but it might be something he takes with him for a very long time.
Well, I think you're going to see, once they get the World Juniors up and going in the summer, you're going to see Luca Cormier there, and you're going to see that World Junior team flourish. I think they're going to excel, like they already showed. They're head and shoulders above the rest when it comes to, every aspect of the game. But you hit the nail on the head, Noah. Gooley, I saw him at the U17s back in the day. He was very, very solid then. I think he's a great 2.5 zone D man. I think Luka has the potential to be a 3 zone D man at the next level from an offensive standpoint. And I think, with Luka's shot improving, that just adds a different dimension, doesn't it? And he can score from those areas. One thing that I love to see at the World Juniors was Luka sneaking in and being more of an offensive force. That's what Luka can bring to any organization. I think you're going to see if the Islanders team can stay healthy, they're going to make a lot of noise. And will they be in St. John come July? More than likely, or come June. Sorry. All the dates are all mixed up.
Yeah, June 20th. I think it's 20th to the 29th as the Mem Cup this year. But yeah, you're right.
That might get pushed back. Who knows?
Exactly. So they're your favorite to represent the Q. If you had to bet $5.
I'm not a betting man. No, I don't like placing bets.
No,
you know that.
Well, if you had to
yes,
put your reputation on it, Craig, you had to pick one team. Who would you put? Who would you bank on?
I would say the Islanders, based on what they've done, who they are, and the character that they have. It's tough when you ship a kid out like Jacob Gooby and Sam Oliver to acquire the goaltender that you believe is going to take you to where you want to go. It's tough. That was a tough deal, but that's a hockey trade. And Jimmy Halton makes hockey trades. And he's addressed every situation on that organization. They've drafted well, they've developed well, they've brought in key free agents at the right times, and they've addressed their offensive needs, and they've addressed their depth. They're the total package, Noah, when it comes to hockey clubs in the QMJHL.
Yeah, no, they look like a hell of a team, and I want to watch them next time they're in Moncton because they look like a team to be reckoned with. Yourself scouting, obviously, with Fredericton Red Wings, how has the pandemic affected the kids' hockey development? Like, do you see it in a very major way? Getting back to rinks and watching hockey on the regular, Craig?
Well, is it fair for us scouts to judge a player after a long layoff? Is it fair? Really? Is it fair for us to get the eraser out and to scrutinize a player for who they are or what they? I don't think it is very fair at all. That doesn't take away from the vetting process that you have to do. You have to realize that a lot of these players here locally, especially in New Brunswick, couldn't practice. They couldn't practice. They couldn't go to the rink, Noah.
Yeah.
So you have to understand that. Has it affected their development? Yes and no. I think it might have derailed their momentum in their draft year. But I don't think it really impacted their development. But I honestly think that these kids, these 15-year-old kids, they really want it, right? And they've done things away from the rink that no one has seen. No one understands the sacrifices that they've made. A lot of kids went through isolation themselves, and continue to try to push through and persevere. So full marks to those kids. Would I say that, this year's a deep draft here with QMJHL talent in the Maritimes? It's hard to say right now. Is it going to be a good junior A draft? Yes. Is it going to be a good, solid QMJHL draft class? Yes. It just depends on organizational need and what the scouts are looking for and zeroing in on. Overall, you have to give full credit to the resiliency of these young players.
Yeah, certainly a tough scenario. Yeah, like you said, not playing for multiple months, and I, I guess the bigger question is, do you th- do you think this will have a long-term impact in the future? Like them missing this time, I think you can even watch NHL games. Some guys just didn't come back as good as they were, and it took them longer to find it. They go through stretches, and maybe that could be something that weighs on players down the line as well.
Well, I think, I've been talking a lot about the three foundational questions that I call them foundational questions anyway, Noah. What does the game mean to you? Where do you see yourself going in the game? And what are you doing every day to get better? Right. So for young players, and especially, I've had a lot of 14 and 15-year-old players and their families and their parents reach out to me just asking for advice and wanting to know what the best route is for their kid. Those three foundational questions, they have to be answered, and they have to be answered every day. Does the kid still want it? Where do they want to go? Where do they see themselves in 2 to 3 years? And what are they doing to get better every day? And I think that's the great divide, right? Are the kids really committed these days? Yes. Do they want it more than their parents? I don't know.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
That's a tough one. But when it boils right down to it, are they going to be ready to make the next step to the next level? Well, there's so many variables, right, to that question. I think the long-term effects, and I'm just being brutally honest here,
Mm-hmm.
I think the long-term effects mentally right now, it's going to take a toll on some players because mentally, are they going to feel ready for the next level? I don't know, because they haven't had the amount of games and
Right.
with such a long layoff. Are they going to be ready for that intensity come training camp? I don't know, and that's one of these questions where young players are going to have to address that, and they're going to ask those tough questions to themselves. If I was a player agent right now, Noah, I'd be talking to my players almost on a bi-weekly basis just to check in to see where they are mentally, not physically. I don't give a rat's ass about that.
Between the years.
Between the years, where are they mindset wise, and what are they doing every day to get better? Right? Because you're looking at some players here, the layoff, what did they do? Right? What did they shoot pucks? This year wasn't the greatest year for outdoor rinks. you
No,
know I
no.
know some QMJHL teams, guys couldn't practice, they couldn't come together as a group. They were out trying to find ice to try to get, to try to stay active as they could. But from the U18 ranks and below, it was a real scramble to try to stay active as you could, and to work on your fitness level, your skill set. It was just difficult. I think it's mental from this point, and it's going to be great to see playoff and coming down the stretch what players are going to deliver.
Right.
I still see some 05 kids that are coming into their own, which is great to see, right?
Right.
Undrafted 05s, from a junior A perspective, they've got a target on their back. There's no question about that.
Yeah. No, absolutely. What's the toughest position for you personally to draft that you find the most difficult to find great talent?
Well, personally speaking, I think, from a junior A perspective, we're always targeting the best player. You have to target the best player. An organizational need is kind of secondary. So you're trying to target the best player available at the right time, which is difficult because, I've talked a lot about this recently, is from a junior A perspective. Are you in a load and go for next year? Are you going to trade assets and draft picks to acquire more assets so you can go? Or are you trying to fill the cupboards? And each organization is looking for that. From a QMJHL perspective, if I'll put on my old CSR hat,
Yeah.
you're trying to rank as many players as you can and identify as many players as you can here locally in the province and in the Maritimes. You're trying to give them an opportunity. That's what it's all about, is giving them an opportunity to showcase their talent when the time comes. Personally speaking, whenever you have to talk about projecting, it's not an exact science, Noah. You're going to make mistakes, but it's your experience that you carry with you, and you carry those mistakes with you. One mistake that I carry with me all the time is a player like Jordan Spence. I've told the story countless times, but I'll tell it again. He was on our CSR list in his draft year, based on his names were of alphabetical order. He was an E prospect, and he was 232nd on our list. All 18 teams missed out on Jordan Spence as a 15-year-old. They didn't miss as a 16. He goes to summer sign with Billy McGuigan, tears it up. Moncton draft him in the second round, and the rest is history. So I carry that with me every time I go to the rink, and I will continue to make mistakes, but it's how you learn from those mistakes as a scout. That's your experience, and that's your guide, your compass, if you will, moving forward. When I see a skilled player at 5'6", 5'7", a first year player at the U18 level, and thinks the game well, those types of players jump off the page for me personally.
Right.
Is he going to be a junior A star? There's potential there. Will he get missed by QMJHL teams because of his side? No question. We're going to give that player an opportunity to play at the junior level. Yes, because he can thrive there. And then at 18, maybe he uses the junior A platform as a jumping off point, but you still had that player for 2 years or maybe a year in your organization, which bodes well for your organization in the future.
No, I'm not a scout, but you watch players. I remember Nathan McKinnon's draft year. I didn't think Seth Jones was going to be a very good player. And I remember at the time thinking, I don't know why this guy is projected so high. He doesn't skate that well. And what was I wrong? Because now he's one of my favorite defensemen. So I wear that one all the time as well. So it happens to the best of us, or even the worst of us, if you're talking about me.
Well, and Noah, realistically, look at how many. Just go back through the Antles, if you will, and look at the second round draft picks and third round draft picks of organizations. I love to do that. And I'm not a stats guy. I don't like stats, as you know. But if you go in and you look at the 2003, 2004 and on, look at sure, everyone knows the first round. There's lots of misses there. Yep. But there's lots of hits in the second and third round. Milan Lucic, Brad Marchand, Patrice Bergeron. And to see how many, and I know that's Boston Bruin heavy.
Pavelski, 7th rounder.
Right. To see how many players have played 500-plus games in the National Hockey League level that have been drafted in the second round and beyond is incredible. And it just goes to show scouts can't always predict, and project, the intangibles that the player has and possesses, and the will to compete a player has. We can't predict that.
So I know you don't like stats, but after hearing your little spiel there, I have a little question that I hope to get an interesting answer from you. What's your favorite stat?
My
I know you don't
favorite
like them, but
stat.
what's your favorite stat? If you had to pick one, what's your favorite stat? Hockey statistic.
Oh shit. I don't know. I don't know. Wins and losses. How's
Yeah,
that?
that's a good one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, people. I had one person reach out. I wrote a little article on plus minus, and I had
Ugh.
a hockey analyst reach out and say, "Oh, Craig, you're way off." From a minor hockey league perspective, from minor hockey, like
Mm-hmm.
we're talking pee wee. Oh well, you whatever they call it now. It's always
Yeah.
going to be pee wee, bantam, and midget in my mind.
Yeah.
But you have to use
Same
the
here.
politically correct terminology these days. From a plus minus perspective, could you really zero in on kids, 12-year-old kids, plus minus? As a coach, I knew, all right, I knew what D pairing was struggling, right? I didn't
Mhm.
need plus minus to tell me that. But it was always good to go down the bench, and especially with your top end, your offensive guys and girls, to say, all right, how many goals did you score as a line tonight? Oh, well, we got one. Okay, how many goals were you on for? Oh, right. We need
Mhm.
work in the defensive zone. And it was, as a coach at that level, it was always, hey, right, you're only as good as your next shift, and we got it all starts in the defensive zone, so we got to start back here. Did I ever pull the stat sheet out and show kids? No. um, did I ever show a kid their plus minus? No. Did I want players and parents keeping them? No.
Yeah.
Right, at that level, I hated it. Oh well. And I tell the story. um, here's a kid that comes to me second. He played Adam Double A, doesn't make Pee Wee Triple A, comes to me in Pee Wee Double A, and the kid would fly the zone, and they had one defenseman that could lift the puck at the Adam level, so he just floated out by the just outside the blue line, going to the red line. So, Buddy would,
Right.
right? He'd have like 4 breakaways a game, right? Score lots of goals because he could roof it. Well, what could he do defensively? So when I had that player, it's like, okay, I had to reteach that player how to play wing in his own zone, right? We
Right.
all knew the offense was there. It was just you got to play in your own zone. You got to do things the right way. You got to do the little things if you want to go score goals. And as an 11-year-old, as a first-year Pee Wee, you got to teach them that. Kid's gone on to play Pee Wee. He went on to play Pee Wee Triple A the following year, which is, from a coaching perspective, that's my goal, is to develop players. It wasn't all about, we won a banner that year, Noah, which was fantastic. You're only as good as your players.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great. I had a fantastic group, but it's, where do the players play next year? That was the biggest takeaway for me. And I was very, very pleased and proud that a lot of players went on to upper levels of the game and play. So hopefully that answers your question about
Yeah.
stats.
No. Yeah. You talking to younger players, do they care about plus minus? Like, just do Q defensemen track that?
I don't talk to very many Q defensemen
Right.
anymore as much
Right.
as I used to when I wrote articles for the Q. But I will tell you this: I think every Q D man knows when they're on the ice for a goal against, and
Right.
they have to look at themselves in the mirror. I think U18 players. I had a U18 player reach out to me, and I recently wrote about this because I want kids to realize, and I want people to realize the pressure that these kids are under. Here's a kid, highly ranked from the CSR. Not going to name names because that's unfair. But here's a kid that was concerned that they're on the second unit of their team's power play. And they were wondering if that's going to take away from their draft stock. Because these players these days, Noah, right, from a scouting perspective, they're in the dark. And it shouldn't be that way. It shouldn't be that way, right? They shouldn't be second guessing themselves and their role on a team, but they do because of the pressure. And oh well, Craig, they have to live up to that. It's self-imposed. It is self-imposed in a lot of cases, but here are 15-year-olds that don't know what scouts are looking for. They don't know the process. They don't know what to expect. Their coaches are at them. Their families are at them. They're trying to live up to all these big expectations and they're 15 years old. So I politely told the kid, listen, man, don't worry about where you're playing, how much time you're playing. Just play to your identity, work on your weaknesses, and you're going to go places, because the kid is going places. And that's why I write what I do, Noah, to be honest about things. It's not about what I see in a player. It's about showcasing a player for who they are, their journey in the game, and to tell players that it's not all about goals and assists. It's about playing to your identity and the value in your identity as a player and as a person, and the character you bring and your will to compete. Those are the intangibles, and that's what every organization is looking for, whether junior A, major junior, NCAA, whatever, right? That's what they're looking for. You know, a perfect example of that is Bennett MacArthur. Goes undrafted in the queue, goes undrafted in the queue, undrafted in the National Hockey League, signs as a free agent with Tampa. He's worked tremendously hard, and I was one of those skeptics. I don't mind. You know, I've written about Bennett, and I've tweeted repeatedly about Bennett's journey. I was one of those skeptics when I saw him at 15 and 16. I didn't think he could skate at the next level. I really didn't. But he proved a lot of people wrong. He proved me wrong. But once I saw him at the QMJHL level, it's like, holy jumpins, this kid really wants it. And that's what it takes. And that's the intangibles that hopefully these players and these young kids realize that they have to bring to the table to prove either people right or prove people wrong.
Yeah, no, I saw that yesterday. Great story for him. A 21-year-old free agent getting it. That's a rare thing to see. A guy of that age get an opportunity. Merritt, I know I'm not going to ask you too many NHL questions, Craig, but this one is QMJHL adjacent. Maritimer in the National Hockey League this season that has surprised you the most?
Well, I'm not going to give you the obvious ones.
Right.
We're going to steer. Well, no, we're going to steer clear of that. One Maritimer that can not at the NHL level.
Okay, sure.
All right. I'll answer your question here momentarily, but
yeah.
there's one backstory that I want to, and I just told. It's my brother's birthday. We're out having a couple pops at a local establishment. My first time in a local establishment in 2 years, Noah.
Wow.
Listen, I've supported. My mask was on quite a bit. I'll tell you this: I've supported local. Our family has supported local. Personally speaking, just didn't feel comfortable in certain situations. We've gone out, obviously, as a family and sat on patios and that type of thing. Given, my job and everything, we've played it very, very cautiously and very safe. So it was great to get out and be with my brother. But it was in that establishment where I'll never forget. It was after a QMJHL game. We went out for a couple pops. It was after a broadcast. The Halifax Mooseheads were in town, and I made the statement that Jarrett McIsaac would be in the National Hockey League at 21. Well, he's 21 years of age right now. His birthday's in late March. The kid is playing very, very well right now in the American Hockey League. If you ask anyone, I think, given his track record, given his injury woes, I think Jarrett McIsaac is having a fantastic season, and proving that where he belongs in the stratosphere of the hockey world. I know a lot of people are doubting his progression in the game, saying, oh, well, he's not strong enough, he's not big enough, he's not going to do this, he's not going to do that. I think he's been fantastic for the American Hockey League, and for this, for this area, just to show kids that it doesn't matter what size you are, what stature, if you can skate and think the game and you can play just about anywhere. So I think Jarrett McIsaac is one Maritimer that's really turning a lot of heads right now. Obviously, again, Drake Batherson had a fantastic season. It's hard to believe, Noah, isn't it, that people were saying, oh, well, he's under, he's this, he's that, he's underachieving. Just give him time. Give him time. Yeah. Right? We know who Drake Batherson is and the type of player he's going to be.
And also, Craig, it's hard to play well when you're young and your team sucks. I mean, let's just be honest.
Yes.
That's just the truth. Like when you're on a bad team, it's hard to be good.
Well, yes. And again, and we've talked about it countless times. I think the Ottawa Senators are going to be very, very good in a few years, right? They have to address their goaltending situation in the next couple of years to solidify that area. I think they're going to be outstanding in a very short time, given the players that they've drafted and are developing. I think they have a great coach in Troy Mann. I think they have a great chief scout in Trent Mann. I think the Senators have done everything the right way. Getting back to your question, I think another Maritimer that has kind of obviously flown under the radar, Zach McEwen, has had a big impact in Philadelphia. Matt Highmore, healthy Matt Highmore, has been very good in Vancouver. But the forgotten Maritimer in all of this, and you mentioned a shitty team, is Liam O'Brien in Arizona. Here's a kid at 28 years old, 27, 28, is a National Hockey League regular. He stands up for his teammates. He'll fight anyone at any time. Liam O'Brien is an all-character, heart and soul player, and it's great to see him having success at the National Hockey League level. And really, everyone knew who Liam O'Brien was, all right? But he's having an impact in that organization, in the community there. And Lord knows Arizona needs some positive PR right now. So props to Liam for everything that he's done for that organization. Phil Myers has had a tough go in Nashville. Yeah. I think he'll come around. He's just too good not to. But there's, Justin Barron's had a solid campaign in the American Hockey League, playing his, his style of game. And then Jordan Spence, like I alluded to. And there's tons of Maritimers right now, Noah, trying to make the jump into the professional ranks and having great success at the East Coast Hockey League level. I look at a Dominic Cormier is just tearing it up, which is great to see. Jeremy McKenna having success at that level, has struggled at the American Hockey League level, not really given a chance with the Marlies this year, only has played a handful of games. So it's a tough go for these players at the professional level. But you cannot discredit what Maritimers bring to the table from a professional standpoint. We all know that it's all about the Maritime pride and the Maritime grit.
Yeah, no, some good examples. I mean, Newhook's been great. And obviously Dawson Mercer as well. And
did you say Atlantic Canadian kids? Because you just said Maritimers.
Yeah,
I'm just teasing.
Mercer's
been fantastic.
Yeah, he's
Newhook has been incredible too.
And my only worry for Newhook is how long is he going to be in Colorado? Because if they really want to take a run, if I'm a team, if I'm a GM of a team, and I'll just for an example, if you got Claude Giroux and you want to trade him, Newhook is coming in the deal. I
He
don't
has
care.
to.
It's a must. It's non-negotiable. He's in the
Yeah.
trade.
He's in the trade,
Yeah.
and he has to be in the trade. But you look at Dawson Mercer, everyone, oh, well, I don't know if he's too, is he strong enough to upper body wise to play? It doesn't matter because he can skate and he thinks the game. And Newhook's the same way. Oh, well, he might be as smallish. He's too small. Doesn't matter. It's their will to compete. It's their skating and the way they think the game. And Newhook and Mercer, phenomenal, phenomenal. And
Yeah.
Mercer's brother's having a pretty damn good year in Drummondville right now. Very athletic goaltender,
He's a
bright
big
future.
kid. Big kid.
Yes, and bright future. He's very active. I saw the kid at 15. He's so athletic between the pipes. It was like watching an 80s goaltender at the Monktonian. He was outstanding all over the ice. As a goaltender, Craig, what do you know? He should be confident and precise. No. The kid's athletic, and he moves so well. It's great to see him having success and paving his own path in the game. But what can you say about Dawson Mercer and Alex Newhook?
I'm looking over your shoulder. You got a picture of Chara there.
And
He's
Krejci right there.
Yeah, I care less about him, but he's in Czech Republic or he's doing something else. But Z's still playing in the NHL, if you can believe it. The Islanders, disappointing year, obviously. Do you think a team could use Z at the trade deadline and bring him in as a depth defenseman for a cup run?
No question. I would.
Yeah,
I would. Is he going to want to leave the Islanders? I doubt it. I doubt it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see him leaving the island. Maybe I'm wrong. Everyone's talking, oh, the Leafs could use him. Well, hell, the Leafs could use anyone right now on the back end. No, I'm just being honest.
No, I agree. I think for a lot of teams, he'd be like their seventh defenseman, but he'd be a guy I'd be more comfortable with him coming in the lineup than a guy that has no playoff experience. And Z's not going to be afraid of the moment to step in if he has to in a game 5 of a second round series.
Well, no. And if you use him the right way, right? Mm-hmm. Why did Boston not re-up him in the first place? Because they wanted to go young, right? They went to him and basically said, listen, we want you, but we want you in this role. Well, he wanted to play, and he went to Washington and played well. In my opinion, he played well in Washington. But right now, watching a few games, pivots, his skating, but in a 5-on-5 situation, in a penalty kill situation, if he's playing 14 to 15 minutes a game, he's going to be effective, or even less.
Yeah,
right?
10 to 12.
He's going to be very, very effective. But you have to, it's the matchup game right now. You can't have them out against speedsters because they're going to, right? They'll burn them wide. So it's all about penalty kill situations. It's about matchup. Was he was out there in a late game situation for the Islanders, net front presence. Those situations, he's going to flourish. There's no question. He's a hockey Hall of Famer. It's great to see him break the all-time games played and most wins and all that stuff. But it's what he brings as a person in that room, as a leader. We all know what type of person he is. He's an outstanding player and person, and I wish him all the best. It's hard to believe he's my age.
Right. Yeah.
He's 45.
Right. Wow. Yeah, it's hard to believe. Him and Tom Brady, they just keep playing. They keep playing despite their age, which is pretty crazy. Yeah. Before I let you go, do you want DeBrusk to be moved at the deadline, or do you want the Bruins to keep him?
I think it's one of those questions that, I've seen a lot of Twitter banter back and forth. And I wrote an article last year on the kid, and some news came out. He wasn't in a good place last year, right? Here's a kid. COVID really, really took a toll on that player, right? He needed to be around. He's young. He's a young kid. He needed to be around his team. The isolation aspect of COVID, threw a big wrench into his progression, in my opinion. Would I like to have Jake DeBrusk on my team heading into the playoffs? On my team, it's not my team. It's a team.
Well, they're your team.
Well, they're my team, I guess. But yes, I would love to have Jake DeBrusk, right? A motivated Jake DeBrusk.
He's a better playoff player than he ever has been regular season.
Right. But why? Right? He was given an opportunity. Oh, well, he hasn't been the same since, the Kadri hit and all that stuff. Whatever. Just look at what he's done. All right. Look at the body of work. Has he been consistent enough? No. Has he done the right things away from the rink? I've heard some stories where, his diet might be this, and his fitness level. You can tell at points of the season, his skating, it just hasn't been there. And he struggled with that. And if he's not skating, he's not effective. Now he's flying out there. He's on pucks. He's back checking. He's more engaged. A telltale sign, in my opinion, Noah, when Bruce Cassidy went down, with COVID, he went into COVID protocol. Jake DeBrusk in that 3-game span was very, very good. I'm not saying that I don't like Bruce Cassidy, because I do. I love his transparency. I love his honesty, all those things. Love him as a coach. I'm just saying Jake DeBrusk, and Bruce Cassidy probably don't see eye to eye. And that's why we're in that situation right now. Pierre LeBrun goes on the record saying that his agent, he still wants to be moved after all this recent success. Why was Jake DeBrusk playing in the fourth line? Did he deserve to be playing on the fourth line? Right? These are questions that, as an organization, you have to ask. You have to ask internally. You have to ask these questions. And if you let a player go like Jake DeBrusk, a young player like this, and you let him go and you let him walk and you acquire you trade him and he flourishes and your trade is right? You have to ask these tough questions. Why was he buried on the fourth line? Was he working hard in practice? Did he have the right opportunity? Did he play with the right players? All these questions have to be addressed. And if they're not, you're not going places as an organization. Maybe they've already asked those questions. And Bruce Cassidy has said all along, if Jake DeBrusk wants to be Jake DeBrusk and get moved, he's going to have to play great hockey. And Don Sweeney has gone on record saying that he's playing great hockey. Now it's the time. If you're going to move him, move him.
Right.
And Senyshyn, he wants out too.
Mm-hmm.
So there's your 2015 draft right there. Zaboral's down with a knee injury. He was finally coming into his own. I'm wishing Jakub the best coming back. It's going to be a tough, cracking the lineup and getting back to where he was when the injury occurred. So there's your 2015 draft right there. You got two young players that are serviceable players that Senyshyn never had a chance to play.
No.
And DeBrusk has been buried on your third and fourth line all season. So if Jake DeBrusk is not ready to play in your top six, right? And now he's
never going to be.
Well, no. And now he's going to play. He's been playing and having success with Bergeron and Marchand. Why hasn't he been there all along? Right? So who answers those questions? Well, Don Sweeney and the head coach does. So I'm a big believer in you've got to talk to your young players. You got to set them up. You got to hold them accountable, but you have to set them up for success. And if you're not doing that, then it's on you as the coach. If the player doesn't buy in, not accountable, then so be it. You got to make a move. And right now they've got to get this trade right. Are they a Stanley Cup contender right now? In my opinion, no, they're not. They might not even be a playoff team because they didn't show that. If they didn't have a fantastic January, Noah, they're not in the playoff picture. Let's face it. Oh, well, they've been hit by COVID and all this stuff. No. Okay, no. So it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you mentioned that draft class. They passed on Barzal and Kyle Connor to take those three players.
Shabbat.
Yeah, so there's a couple of guys that might have helped. But that happens. You're gonna have those, you're gonna have drafts where it just doesn't go your way in the top ends. But Craig, I know you had a busy day. I know you're you're a busy guy, so I appreciate you joining me tonight. Always a fun chat with you. And anything you want to let people know, what ranks you're checking out, what games you're looking at coming up on your schedule?
Well, I think it's a great opportunity for people with things kind of opening up now to get out and experience local hockey again.
Yeah.
Junior A organizations, QMJHL organizations, and even U18 organizations need your support now more than ever. It's been a tough 2 years financially for a lot of these organizations. I just think that right now, if you wear a mask, if you don't wear a mask, it's your choice in where you go and what you do with regards to that. But just get out and get back to the rinks. I think that's the biggest takeaway and biggest message that I'd like to send right now is there's some great hockey being played locally, and it's going to be great to see how the year comes to an end. And it's always going to be great to have the Memorial Cup in New Brunswick. I know I've been kind of hard on the St. John Sea Dogs, but there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes with that organization. So, hopefully we're going to see some great hockey coming down the stretch. And me personally, I'm going to keep trying to tell stories and keep evaluating and projecting players for the Fredericton Red Wings. And that's my job and that's my passion. So, and again, Noah, thank you so much for the opportunity tonight. And it's great to be invited on the show. And it's great to see you flourish here with the To The Point podcast. You're doing some great things and some great guests. So it's a privilege to be on tonight.
No, I appreciate it, Craig. All the best to you going forward, and we'll chat soon.
All right. Thanks, Noah. Take care.
So that was Craig Eagles, everybody. Thank you, Craig, for joining in tonight. Really appreciate the time. And as always, fun chat, getting to hear more about the Q, about, the scouting process and all of that. Yeah, I've watched a little more Q than I have recently. Like I said, I went to the Drummondville Moncton game the other night. That was, it was a crazy game. And it's fun getting to those games because you get to see the future players. Craig talked about Jordan Spence, who's having a great year for the Ontario Reign, the affiliate of the Los Angeles Kings. Jarrett McIsaac, who's currently playing for the Grand Rapids Griffins, the affiliate of the Detroit Red Wings. So again, you get to see these young players and, youngsters like Luca Cormier, who's from close to New Brunswick here, and some other guys. And you get to see Dawson Mercer play before he gets to the NHL. And, now he's flourishing for the New Jersey Devils. So that's a lot of fun. And coming up this week, the rest of the week, tomorrow, we'll talk about a lot of different things. We'll get into the Arnold Palmer tournament in golf. Also, Cole McDonald's going to join me. We'll talk a lot of different hockey stories. How I watched Tampa last night, and they only beat Ottawa, and Ottawa's not a great team. But what's so impressive to me is, Braden Point is a 4-point game. That's no surprise. But Patrick Maroon, the big rig, he's more of a punchline. Yeah, he's won a bunch of cups, but he's like, this big goofy guy. He's got 15 goals. So he's got 10 goals on the season. Corey Perry, the worm, who barely could get a contract, has 15. This team just plugs and plays with guys. And to me, they're still the most dangerous team. Toronto, in that Atlantic division, it's going to be interesting down the stretch because Toronto's right in the thick of it with Florida and with Tampa. To me, Florida's in a bit of a skid right now. Bobrovsky is not giving them the saves that he was the past couple of weeks. They've lost a few in a row. They have Ottawa tomorrow at sunrise. But as we go down the stretch, Toronto's got Buffalo. You got to win those games. Toronto's currently a point behind Florida. They both played 53 games. Tampa Bay's in first place with 76 points. They played one fewer game than Florida and Toronto. So it's very much an arms race. What will these teams do at the deadline? Tampa has Pittsburgh tomorrow, so that should be an interesting game. But you look at this division. Toronto and Florida play each other 3 times. Toronto and Tampa play 2 to 3 more times, I believe. Florida and Tampa play each other 3 more times. So those games are so important. But other than that, you play Detroit, you play Ottawa. Toronto has Buffalo tonight. They got them again in that outdoor game, which who can't wait to watch that. Montreal. These bottom 4 teams, excluding Boston, who are, Craig just talked about them. They're kind of in the middle. They have 68 points there, and they played one more game than Toronto and Florida. They're not going to catch them. They're likely going to make the playoffs, but they're not really a threat. They're going to be a wild card team. They'll likely finish ahead of Washington, who is really in a downward spiral right now. They're not playing good hockey. But, that's the most intriguing thing for me. Also tonight, you got St. Louis at the Rangers. Great game. And St. Louis has had some really great years. Jordan Kyrou. I encourage people, if you got center ice, watch this game tonight because St. Louis and New York are both really good teams. They're both going to be in the playoffs. And I look at St. Louis, what's honestly one of the most intriguing angles is who's going to be their starting goalie. Because normally you'd say, well, of course it's going to be Jordan Binnington. He won them a cup just 3 years ago. To me, if the playoffs started tonight, Ville Husso would be the starting goaltender for the St. Louis Blues. He is 13-3-2 in the season. He's got a .935 save percentage, 203 goals against. Now, Shesterkin puts him to shame with his numbers, made way more starts, but Husso's been rock solid. If you remember when Binnington got the reins in St. Louis, he had barely any NHL experience. He had not played a playoff game. Husso's in that same spot. St. Louis, I look at this team and I give them a ton of credit when it comes to guys like Tarasenko, who was bitching about a contract, which I did not, I didn't appreciate. I didn't think it was him whining, but he took it on the chin. He sucked it up and he's playing hockey now. You look at, against Kyrou, Ivan Barbashev's having a career season. The guy has 16 goals, 24 assists. He's playing like he was in Moncton. You're starting to see that offensive flair. He's already got a career high in points and in goals. Torrey Krug's finding his way. They still have Colton Parayko, not a big point getter on the back end, but he's rock solid. David Perron is always going to show up. Robert Thomas is starting to have more of an impact. Braden Shen is starting to play better. St. Louis would fear me. They are a scary team. I wouldn't want to play them. Again, they got the Rangers tonight. Rangers have been off for a few days after losing to Vancouver on Sunday. St. Louis hasn't played since Sunday either after shutting out Chicago Blackhawks. So that's an interesting game tonight. But like I said, tomorrow we'll get into a lot of hockey stories. We'll touch on the golf scene, preview the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Friday, my good buddy and frequent guest on the podcast, Matt Wright, is going to join me. We're going to talk some football. We're also going to talk college basketball. March Madness, it's on the horizon. Give you guys a little primer. If you guys like to put in a bracket, you like to gamble on the tournament, or just follow along because it is it starts March 17th, so it's going to be here before we know it. Before we even get into the middle of the month, we're going to have March Madness start, NFL free agency, the NHL trade deadline. So lots of content, lots of different options for To The Point here, and a lot of cool stories to talk about. But we'll get into a lot more. Even the Cardinals story, today they extended their head coach, Cliff Kingsbury, and their GM, Steve Keim, through 2027. What does this mean for Kyler Murray, who wants a long-term extension? Doesn't look like he's going to get one anytime soon, yet the coach is re-signed after having no playoff success. So I doubt that Kyler Murray and his camp are thrilled to hear that the coach and GM are getting paid before he does. But fun show today. Cole McDonald tomorrow, which should be fun. Thank you to Craig Eagles for joining me. Always fun chalking it up with Craig. But great week so far, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Keep the comments coming. Vote for the poll question every day on our Instagram story to follow along and be a part of the podcast. But until then, we'll see you tomorrow. This has been To The Point.